At our wedding banquet, my newlywed husband, Lu Tingshan, raised his glass and walked up to his first love. In front of 200 friends who had studied in France, he said softly in French, "If I couldn't marry you, it wouldn't matter whom I married." The whole room burst into laughter, and everyone waited to watch this small-town girl who doesn't understand French make a fool of herself. I set down my chopsticks, lifted my glass of red wine, and with the standard accent of an 8-year French language spokesperson at the United Nations enunciated, "Mr. Lu, I worked as a translator at the United Nations for 8 years." The room turned to stone. The wedding banquet was set in the largest ballroom of the Peninsula Hotel, with 60 tables laid out beneath crystal chandeliers, each one stocked with Bordeaux red wine and foie gras. Lu Tingshan said it was the style he liked, French elegance. I even thought he had taste at the time. Now I know it wasn't taste, it was his sense of ceremony he wanted to stage. A confession to another woman in the French tableau he had carefully arranged. "I was the last to know, sis-in-law. I heard you don't understand French." Lu Tingshan's college roommate Zhong Hao leaned over with a glass, smiling suggestively. "So don't pretend you can't understand Tingshan's speech later." I smiled and said nothing. I worked as a simultaneous interpreter at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva for 8 years, switching seamlessly every day among French, English and Chinese. I served the Secretary General and did simultaneous interpretation for the Security Council. My French accent was judged by French diplomats to be more Parisian than Parisians, but after I returned to China I never mentioned any of this, because Lu Tingshan said, "Our family doesn't like women who are too strong." When he said it, his tone was as gentle as if he were soothing a child. I believed him. My mother was gravely ill and desperately needed a huge sum for surgery. The Lu family paid that money. In return, I married into the Lu family. I knew it was a transaction, but I thought at least I would earn their respect. I was wrong. By the time the third course arrived, Lu Tingshan suddenly stood up, holding a glass, walked halfway around the banquet hall, and went to the table by the window. That table was filled with his classmates from Paris Business School, men and women dressed to the nines, each wearing an expression that said, "We belong to a different world." Seated in the center of that table was a woman in a Chanel haute couture suit, Shun Ruoqing, Lu Tingshan's first love. I knew her. I knew before I returned to the country. Lu Tingshan's phone password was still her birthday. There was a photo of them hidden in his study, and in his car he kept a CD she had recorded in Paris. I knew all of it, but I chose to play dumb. Ruoqing. Lu Tingshan stood in front of her, his voice so gentle it didn't belong at his own wedding banquet. The noise in the room suddenly quieted a little. Everyone watched the scene, the groom holding a glass, standing in front of his ex-girlfriend. Shun Ruoqing looked up at him, her eyes rimmed with red and her lips trembling slightly. Then Lu Tingshan spoke. He used French, his voice low, as if reciting a love poem. "Adafort de t'épouser, épouser en import qui m'estigal." The air in the entire banquet hall solidified. The French students at that table were momentarily stunned, then burst into suppressed laughter. Zhong Hao laughed the loudest, clutching his stomach and leaning on the table, his shoulders trembling. A girl pulled out her phone and secretly recorded. The camera first focused on Lu Tingshan and Shun Ruoqing, then turned toward me. They were waiting to see my reaction. In their eyes, I was nothing more than a small-town girl who knows 2 lines of French, a Cinderella who married up into the Lu family through an arranged match. They thought I couldn't understand, that I sat there ignorant of everything, kept in the dark like a fool. 200 people, 200 pairs of eyes waiting to see me humiliated. Lu Tingshan glanced at me too. There was no guilt in that look, no unease, only a lofty, condescending pride. He was declaring in another language, "You are not worthy of entering my world." I put down my chopsticks. I picked up the wine glass on the table, stood up, my heels striking the marble floor with a crisp sound. I crossed half the banquet hall, each step steady, the hem of my dress drawing an arc along the floor. The whole room fell silent. I stepped up to Lu Tingshan, looked at him, then turned my gaze to Shun Ruoqing. I spoke in French, each tremor precise as a Swiss watch. "Monsieur Lu, sachez que je suis interprète auprès des nations unies depuis huit ans, responsable de l'équipe française. Votre prononciation est médiocre, votre grammaire est fausse, et votre façon de traiter les femmes est un scandale." The banquet hall was so quiet you could hear ice melting in the glasses. I translated that sentence. "Mr. Lu, I have worked as a French interpreter at the United Nations for 8 years and am the head of the French team. Your pronunciation is terrible, your grammar is wrong, and your way of treating women is a scandal. I paused, looked into Shen Ruoqing's eyes and added, Et toi ma chère, Illinois temps de padre du poids, si tissu tisse trop, and you my dear, it's time to lose weight, that dress is too tight. Shen Ruoqing's face instantly turned the color of pig liver. She looked down at her Chanel, that suit really did pinch out the rolls at her waist. She bit her lip and the tears in her eyes shifted from moved to humiliated. Lu Tingshan's hand was trembling, and the red wine in his glass spilled, dripping onto his cuff. He opened his mouth trying to say something, but not a single word came out. Because he knew that I had exposed his lie in public, he didn't just betray me. The way he betrayed me was so crude, so cowardly, he couldn't even shame me to my face. He had to hide behind another language. The smiles of the students at the table who had studied in France froze on their faces. Zhong Hao put his phone away and lowered his head to pretend to be eating. The girl who had been recording hurriedly deleted the video. I looked at Lu Tingshan and, syllable by syllable in Chinese, said, Husband, your toast was not bad, but next time you want to whisper something, remember to check the other person's background first. I turned and walked back to my seat, picked up my bowl and continued drinking the soup. There were 200 people in the room, and not a single one dared to speak. Shen Ruoqing was the first to leave. When she grabbed her bag and rushed out, her high heel twisted at the door and she nearly fell. No one went to help her. Lu Tingshan was standing beside the table, still holding a wine glass like a statue. His face turned from deathly pale to dark as iron, then flushed red. The wedding banquet wasn't over when he disappeared. I sat at the head table and finished the whole bowl of shark fin soup by myself. Lu Tingshan's mother, my mother-in-law, kept her head down the whole time and wouldn't look at me. Beside her, Lu Jinghua, the patriarch of the Lu family, glanced at me with a complex expression, shock, scrutiny, and something else I couldn't read. Later I learned that it was fear. When the banquet broke up, Zhong Hao passed by me and whispered, Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. I ignored him. My phone rang, a WeChat message. I opened it. It was from Lu Tingshan, just 4 characters. Were you scheming against me? I didn't reply. A second message arrived immediately. You think a few lines of French make you impressive? Shen Ruoqing's family owns a winery in Paris. What do you have? I still didn't reply. Third message. Your mother's next surgery fee. I haven't sent it yet. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Outside the window, the neon lights of the Peninsula Hotel glittered in the night sky. I suddenly remembered the night view of Geneva, the flags in front of the Palace of Nations at the United Nations headquarters fluttering quietly under the streetlights. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't WeChat but the notification tone from an encrypted messaging app. I opened it. A message sent from Geneva, from Jean-Luc of the UN Personnel Department. Qingyin, le poste de chef de la division D2 T attend. Réponse avant vendredi. Qingyin, the position of head of division D2 is waiting for you. Reply by Friday. I turned off the screen and stepped into the elevator. The moment the elevator doors closed, I smiled at myself in the mirror. Lu Tingshan, did you think you were marrying a small-town girl who speaks French? You picked the wrong person to mess with. The marital bedroom was the master on the 3rd floor of the Lu family villa, European-style decor, crystal chandelier, and a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking an artificial lake. On the bedside table sat a bouquet of red roses, droplets of water still clinging to the petals. Everything was perfect, like a model room in a magazine, except the groom wasn't there. I had showered, changed into my pajamas, and sat on the edge of the bed blow-drying my hair. My phone screen lit up 3 times, messages from Lu Tingshan on WeChat, and I didn't open them. At 1 in the morning, the sound of a car engine came from downstairs. Footsteps rang from the 1st floor up to the 3rd, each step full of anger. When the door was pushed open, I was leaning against the headboard flipping through a French edition of Le Monde Diplomatique. Lu Tingshan stood in the doorway, his tie askew, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone, his face flushed from drinking. He smelled strongly of alcohol and cologne, not my perfume. When did you learn French? He closed the door, his voice low like an enraged leopard. I flipped a page of the magazine. 8 years ago, 8 years ago, he sneered. You were plotting against me 8 years ago, Lu Tingshan. I closed the magazine and looked at him. You confessed to your ex at my wedding, then said I was scheming against you. I'm asking you. He stepped over, hands braced on the posts at the foot of the bed. leaning down to stare at me. Did you plan in advance to embarrass me at the wedding? Embarrass you? I put the magazine down, stood up, and met his gaze. You said in front of 200 people in French, I don't care who I marry, and then blamed me for making you embarrassed. What is that? I cut him off. Is that your true feelings? He fell silent. I looked at him and suddenly found it laughable. This man, 32, heir to a billion-yuan empire, an overseas returned MBA, outwardly gentle and refined, was so cowardly at his core that he didn't even dare to speak his true feelings in Chinese. Lu Tingshan, let's get a divorce. When I said it, my tone was very calm, as if I were saying, the weather is nice today. He froze. What did you say? Divorce. I took a document from the bedside drawer and tossed it onto the bed. This is the prenuptial agreement. I consulted a lawyer. According to the agreement, if the husband's fault leads to the divorce, I am entitled to 30% of the assets under your name. He picked up the agreement and flipped through it, his expression growing darker and darker. You had it planned all along, before the wedding. He threw the contract to the floor. You fucking plotted against me from the start. Plotted against you. I laughed. Lu Tingshan, get it straight. Your family approached me for this marriage. You humiliated me at the wedding. I caught you cheating first, and now you're accusing me of plotting against you. I didn't cheat, he said through gritted teeth. You didn't cheat. I took out my phone and opened a photo, him embracing Shen Ruoqing in a hotel lobby, timestamped 3 days ago. What is this? He stared at the photo, his Adam's apple bobbing once. I'm just what? Just confessing in French at your wedding. Just booking a room with her before the reception starts. I put my phone away. You don't have to explain. I don't care. You don't care. He abruptly looked up at me. I don't care. I sat back down on the bed. I married you because your mother agreed to pay for my mother's surgery. You married me because your father wanted a political marriage. There was no love between us, only a transaction. Now the transaction is over. Over. He sneered. You think divorce is that simple? I just paid the first installment of your mother's surgery fee. There are 3 more installments, 2 million each time. If you want a divorce, who will pay the remaining money? My fingers tightened. That disease your mother has. He straightened up, adjusted his collar, regaining his usual haughtiness. Spinal muscular atrophy, gene therapy, 2 million per injection, at least 4 injections. Do you think your civil servant salary can cover that? I said nothing. Shen Qingyan. He went to the door and looked back at me. No matter how good your French is, you're just a translator in front of the Lu family. You are nothing. If you want a divorce, fine, pay off your mother's surgery bills, then get out of the Lu family. He opened the door. By the way, he said without turning his head, starting today, all your bank cards are frozen, your payroll card, credit card, savings card, none of them will work. If you want to go out and work, go ahead, but as for your mother, he paused, deal with it yourself. The door closed. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to his footsteps fade away at the end of the corridor. A wind rose outside, ruffling the surface of the artificial lake into a tangle. I picked up my phone and looked at the message from Geneva. The words on the screen emitted a faint glow in the dark. I dialed a number. The phone rang 4 times and was answered. It was early morning in Paris. Jean-Luc's voice sounded sleepy. Qingyan, tout va bien. Qingyan, are you all right? Jean-Luc, I said, my voice steady. Is that D2 position still open? Of course it is. I told you that seat is yours alone. When are you coming back? Give me a little more time. I have one more thing to take care of. What is it? I glanced at the divorce agreement on the floor and the corner of my mouth lifted slightly. Taking care of a person. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and logged into an account I hadn't used in a long time, the network I'd built with various embassies and consulates while working at the United Nations. The address book contained over 300 contacts, from foreign ministers of African countries to officials at the European Central Bank, from advisors at the International Monetary Fund to investors from Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds. I clicked on a name, Mohammed Al-Farsi, head of Europe for the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. 3 years ago he was in Geneva negotiating an oil deal. I was his French interpreter. After the deal he said, Mademoiselle Shen, si un jour vous avez besoin d'argent, appelez-moi, Miss Shen, if one day you need money, call me. I had never made that call, but now it was time. I wrote an email in French, phrased formally but not without warmth. The content was simple. I needed an investment aimed at a Chinese real estate company. I could guarantee the return, but on one condition: I had to obtain controlling interest in the company. Sent. 3 minutes later a reply arrived. Qingyin dun moi once amen. Qingyin, give me a week. I shut the laptop and lay back down. The crystal chandelier on the ceiling refracted tiny shards of light, very much like the reflection of the setting sun on Lake Geneva. The phone rang again. This time it was Lu Tingshan's mother, my mother-in-law, calling. Qingyin. Her voice was cautious. Did Tingshan have a fight with? You don't be upset, he's been spoiled since childhood. Mom, I interrupted her. I'm fine, you should rest early. Then you and Tingshan will handle it. I hung up the phone, turned it off and pulled the blanket over me. Tomorrow I'm going to the hospital to see Mom. The day after tomorrow, I'm going to the Lu group to see Lu Zhenghua. Within a week, I will make Lu Tingshan know his biggest mistake in this life was not marrying me, but speaking French in front of me. VIP ward, First Municipal People's Hospital, 8:00 a.m. My mother was propped up on the hospital bed, pale but still alert. When she saw me come in alone, she glanced behind me. Where's Tingshan? He's busy. I set the thermos on the bedside table and opened the lid. Mom, I made chicken soup. You went to so much trouble. My mom took the bowl, sipped and then suddenly asked, did something happen to you at last night's wedding? My hand paused. Who told you that? The head nurse. Her daughter was working as a server at the reception. My mom put the bowl down and looked at me. Qingyin, have I been a burden to you? That's not true. I took her hand. Mom, don't overthink it. That's surgery. My mother's voice was very soft. Costs 2 million per injection. 4 injections in total. Tingshan's mom paid for the first one, but the rest? I'll find a way to cover the rest. What way could you possibly have? That translation job of yours, how much do you make a month? Mom, I interrupted her. I've worked at the United Nations for 8 years. I'm not an ordinary translator. She froze. I have contacts, resources, more than you imagine. I tucked the blanket around her. You just focus on getting better, leave the rest to me. The door was pushed open. Lu Tingshan stood in the doorway, dressed in a suit, holding a craft paper envelope. He glanced at me, then at my mother, forcing a fake smile. Mom, I came to see you. My mother hurriedly sat up. Tingshan is here, sit down quickly. I'm not sitting. He set the envelope on the bedside table. This is the check for the second installment of the surgery fees, 2 million. My mother's eyes reddened. Tingshan, thank you. No need to thank me. Lu Tingshan glanced at me. Qingyin is my wife, it's what I should do. When he said the word wife, his tone was like he was talking about a commodity. I stood up. Mom, I'm going out to talk with Tingshan for a bit. In the corridor, I closed the door and turned to look at him. I accepted the check, but I need to make this clear, it's a loan and I will pay it back. Pay back? He leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets. With what are you going to pay back? Do you have a job in the country? Your bank cards are frozen, you can't even pay this month's phone bill. That's my business. Shen Qingyin. He suddenly moved closer to me and lowered his voice. What you said about divorce last night, I just pretended I didn't hear it. Behave and be Mrs. Lu. I'll cover your mother's medical bills. If you insist on making a scene, don't blame me. What am I blaming you for? I looked at him. Freezing all my bank cards, refusing to pay for my mom's surgery, or hiding your pregnant first love? His expression changed. Pregnant? I laughed. You didn't know? Shen Ruoqing didn't tell you? What are you talking about? She told me so herself last night. I took out my phone and opened a recording. Do you want to hear it? I pressed play. In the recording, Shen Ruoqing's voice trembled with sobs. Qingyin Jia, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to. I'm pregnant, the child is Tingshan's, I don't know what to do. This was what Shen Ruoqing grabbed me at the banquet hall door and said last night. She thought I didn't understand French and, stumbling over the language, poured her heart out to me in tears. I listened the whole time, then said in Chinese, I know, and she went pale with fright. Lu Tingshan listened to the recording, his face ashen. She's pregnant. You didn't know. I put my phone away. Looks like you two weren't that close after all. He pulled out his phone to make a call, but I held him back. Don't, I said. Listen to me first. I took a file from my bag and handed it to him. This is the surveillance footage from last night's wedding banquet. The part where you said in French I don't care who I marry, I've already backed it up 3 times. Stored in 3 different places. He took the file, his fingers trembling. What do you want to do? I don't want to do anything, I just want you to know. I looked into his eyes and spoke deliberately. From now on, every time you touch one of my bank cards, this video will appear in your father's email. Every time you postpone a surgery payment, this video will appear in your company's board group chat. You dare? What am I afraid of? I cut him off. Lu Tingshun, you should have thought about the consequences when you were showing off your French in front of the UN translator. He stared at me, his chest heaving violently. What exactly do you want? First, I held up one finger. Unfreeze all my bank cards. Second, pay my mother's surgery fees on time. I'll repay that money. Third, I paused. Third, starting today, don't speak to me anymore. I turned and walked into the ward, closing the door. Through the glass pane in the door, I saw Lu Tingshun standing in place, clutching that document. His expression shifted from anger to fear, then from fear to bewilderment. He took out his phone, dialed a number, and held it to his ear. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw him, after hanging up, lean against the wall and slowly slide down to the floor. My mother asked in the ward, Qingyin, has Tingshun left? Yes. I ladled her a second bowl of chicken soup. Are you two all right? It's nothing. I smiled. Mom, after you finish the soup I'll wheel you out to get some sun. The phone buzzed. I looked down. It was a message from Mohammed. Qingyin, les fonds sont prêts. Envoie-moi le dossier de l'entreprise. Qingyin, the funds are ready. Send me the company's files. I replied with one word, merci. Thank you. Outside the window, sunlight fell on the hospital garden, and an old man in a wheelchair was talking to the pigeons. I watched my mother finish the chicken soup. The color had returned to her face. The phone rang again. This time it was an unfamiliar number. I picked up, and on the other end was Shen Ruoqing's voice, very low. Qingyin, I want to talk to you. About what? About that child. She paused, her voice carrying a strange tremor. Actually, I'm not pregnant. The kafua's on the top floor of the third phase of Guamaro, beyond the floor to ceiling windows stretched the CBD skyline. I chose the innermost private room and ordered 2 cups of Blue Mountain. Chen Rui, Lu Tingshun's assistant, was 20 minutes late. He pushed the door open, sweating profusely, his tie askew, looking as if he'd just escaped from some chaotic scene. Sister-in-law, sorry, there was traffic on the way. He sat down, his eyes constantly glancing at my expression. It's fine. I pushed the coffee over. Chen Rui, how many years have you worked for the Lu family? 6 years. He lifted the cup and took a sip, his hand trembling slightly. 6 years. I nodded. Then you should know quite a bit. He paused in the middle of setting the cup down. Sister-in-law, you asked for me. What is it exactly? I took an envelope from my bag and slid it across to him. He opened it and glanced inside. His expression changed. Inside was a stack of photos, all intimate shots of Lu Tingshun and Shen Ruoqing in various situations. These, you took them. I looked at him. These photos were saved on Lu Tingshun's phone. You helped him take them. Not only did you take them, you also deleted the cloud backup records. Sweat began to bead on Chen Rui's forehead. Sis-in-law, don't be nervous. I smiled. I'm not here to demand an explanation. I came to ask you for a favor. What help? Lu Tingshun has been negotiating for a piece of land recently, right? That commercial plot in Tongju, the 200 million project. He fell silent. The approval for that plot requires a permit from the Bureau of Land, I continued, but as far as I know that permit hasn't been issued yet. What methods did Lu Tingshun use to smooth things over? Chen Rui lowered his head, his fingers twisting together. Sister-in-law, I can't say. Chen Rui, I cut him off. You've followed Lu Tingshun for 6 years. How much does he pay you? 30,000 a month, 50,000? He didn't answer. What if I told you I could give you a job that pays 2 million a year and you wouldn't have to handle your boss's cheating photos every day, wouldn't have to cook the books for him, and wouldn't have to take the fall for him? Would you be willing to switch bosses? He jerked his head up and looked at me. I worked at the United Nations for 8 years and my network spans the globe. I can recommend you to a European consulting firm as the Asia-Pacific director, starting salary 2 million a year with social insurance and housing fund and 1 month of paid vacation each year. Sis-in-law, are you kidding? I never joke about work. I pushed a draft contract across. This is the preliminary agreement. You can take it back and read it at your leisure, but I have one condition. What condition? Give me the evidence that Lu Tingshun bribed the Land Bureau. He hesitated. Chen Rui, I picked up my coffee cup. Do you think Lu Tingshun will protect you if something happens to him? You know his character better than I do. If anything goes wrong, the first person he'll throw under the bus is someone close to him. Chen Rui tapped his fingers on the tabletop a few times. then stopped. He took a USB drive out of his pocket and placed it on the table. Inside are recordings of 3 instances of bribery. The first was at the Jockey Club, the second in his car, the third in the Deputy Director of the Land Bureau's office. The amounts, times, and locations, all of it. I picked up the USB drive and looked it over. How did you record it? He asked me to give him rides, so I put a voice recorder in the car. Chen Rui's voice was very calm. 6 years, I've got to leave myself a way out. I looked at him and suddenly felt that this was the truly smart person. One more thing, I said. Is Shen Ruoqing actually pregnant? Chen Rui gave a bitter smile. No, she was pretending. She wanted to force Lu Tingshan to divorce and marry her. But Lu Tingshan refused, so she said she was pregnant, hoping the Lu family patriarch would step in. Did Lu Zhenghua know? No, if the old man found out she faked a pregnancy to trick him into marriage, he could take away that little winery from her family. I put the USB drive into my bag and stood up. Chen Rui, thank you. Someone will contact you within 3 days about that job agreement. Sis-in-law. He also stood up. May I ask you a question? Ask. What exactly are you? I thought for a moment. I'm just a translator. After leaving the cafe, I plugged the USB drive into my phone in the elevator, put on my earphones and listened to the 3 recordings first. Recording Lu Tingshan's conversation with the Deputy Director of the Land Bureau at the Jockey Club, a bribe of 5 million yuan, transferred under the name of a consulting fee. Second recording in the car, Lu Tingshan discussed with the company's chief financial officer how to adjust the accounts to cover up the bribe. Third recording in the Land Bureau office, the deputy director himself said, "The approval document will be given to you on Monday, you handle the money." I pulled out the USB drive and dialed a number. "Hello, is this the hotline for Finance Weekly? I have evidence that Huateng Real Estate bribed the Land Bureau. Are you interested?" There was a 2-second pause on the other end, then, "Hold on, I'll transfer you to the investigative reporting team." I hung up and stepped into the elevator. The elevator doors were about to close when someone squeezed in. Zhong Hao, Lu Tingshan's college roommate, sister-in-law. He saw me and looked very awkward. What a coincidence. The elevator went down. He stood beside me at a loss. "Sister-in-law, about last night. I'm sorry, I didn't know you spoke French. You thought I didn't understand, so you joined in the teasing." He lowered his head. "Zhong Hao, I watched the elevator numbers jump from 58 to 47. How long have you known Lu Tingshan?" 10 years. 10 years. I nodded. "Then you should know what kind of person he is." He didn't speak. "When he asks you for help, you'll help, but when something happens to him, will you also be unlucky because of it?" The elevator reached the first floor and the doors opened. "Zhong Hao, let me give you a piece of advice. Stay away from Lu Tingshan." I walked out of the elevator, leaving him standing inside alone. My phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. "Ms. Shen, I'm Lin Feng, an investigative reporter from Financial Weekly. The evidence you have, can we set a time to meet and talk?" "Yes, but I have one request." "What request?" "Before the report is published, don't notify Huateng Real Estate. I want them to see the article in the board meeting right there." "No problem, see you tomorrow afternoon." "Okay." After hanging up, I stood at the entrance of China World Trade Center Phase 1, watching the traffic on Chang'an Avenue. My phone vibrated again. It was a WeChat message from Lu Tingshan. "Shen Qingyan, are you investigating me?" I didn't reply. Article 2. "I'm warning you, don't do anything unnecessary. Your mother is still lying in the hospital." I stared at the screen, typed a line, then deleted it. Then I made a call, not to Lu Tingshan but to Lu Zhenghua. "Dad, this is Qingyan. Are you free tomorrow morning? I want to visit the old house and see you." Lu Zhenghua was silent for a few seconds. "You come." I hung up the phone and hailed a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The old Lu family residence." I gave the address and leaned back in the rear seat, closing my eyes. The USB drive is in the bag, the recording is on the phone, the report is for tomorrow, and Lu Tingshan still thinks he controls everything. The Lu family's old residence sits at the foot of Xiangshan, covering 2,000 square meters, a Chinese-style courtyard with red walls and grey tiles. Lu Zhenghua was practicing Tai Chi in the yard. When he saw me come in, he finished his form, grabbed a towel and wiped his sweat. "You're here." He glanced at me and turned toward the study. I followed. A calligraphy scroll hung on the study wall. Lu Zhenghua sat on a rosewood chair and motioned for me to sit. The housekeeper served tea and closed the door. "Go on, what is it?" I placed the USB drive on the table. Dad, listen to this first. He glanced at the USB drive, then at me, picked it up and plugged it into the computer. The recording played in the study, Lu Tingshan's voice, the deputy director of the Land Bureau's voice, the financial director's voice, each word hitting the mahogany floor like a hammer. Lu Zhenghua's expression sank deeper and deeper. When the recording finished, he took off his reading glasses, closed his eyes and fell silent for a long time. What do you want? Divorce? He opened his eyes and looked at me. Is that all? And also, I took the divorce agreement out of my bag and placed it on the table. This is the draft. My requests are simple. First, the Lu family will continue to pay all my mother's medical expenses. I will repay that money in the future. Second, give me a compensation payment. The amount is up to you. Third, I paused for a moment. Third, Lu Tingshan must apologize publicly. Lu Zhenghua picked up the agreement, flipped through it and suddenly laughed. Shen Qingyan, do you know you are 100 times better than my son? Thank you. But do you think you can bring down the Lu family with just these recordings? He unplugged the USB drive and set it on the table. You should know, our relationship with the Land Bureau official is not just about money. I know, I nodded. That's why I have a backup. His smile froze. And, I continued, I didn't just give the evidence to you, I also gave it to the investigative reporter at Financial Weekly. Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon, unless I call to withdraw it, the story will go out. Lu Zhenghua stood up, hands planted on the table, staring at me. You, Dad, I interrupted him. I don't want to be enemies with the Lu family. I just want to leave with dignity. You give me a way out, I'll give you a way out. We both take a step back, okay? He sat back down, picked up the teacup on the table, his hand trembling slightly. How much do you want? I told you. You decide. 100 million. All right. He was stunned for a moment, probably not expecting me to agree so readily. There's one more thing, I said. On the last page of the agreement I added a line in French as an additional clause. Before you have Tingshan sign it, remember to let him read it carefully. French. He frowned. You added a clause in French. Yes, I've translated it into Chinese and attached it afterward. It's a clause about compensation for mental damage if the husband engages in public humiliation during the marriage. He must pay damages. How much? 800 million. Lu Zhenghua nearly dropped his teacup. 800 million. Are you out of your mind? I'm not crazy, I said calmly. The money isn't for me, it's being donated to the Rare Disease Foundation my mother runs. The Lu family spends billions on charity every year anyway. Donating to foundations does good and reduces taxes. It's killing two birds with one stone. Besides, I stood up. This clause is supplementary and does not affect the validity of the main agreement. If Tingshan did not publicly humiliate me, not a cent of this money has to be paid. But he did it at the wedding banquet. The evidence is unequivocal, so he must pay. Lu Zhenghua stared at me for a long time. Shen Qingyan, did you marry into the Lu family or did you come to take over the Lu family? I smiled. I'm just a translator. Leaving the old house, sunlight fell on the red leaves of Xiangshan, red as fire. My phone rang. It was Lin Feng, MS. Shen, about tomorrow's report. Put it on hold for now. Suppress it. Yes, I've reached an agreement with the Lu family, but if anything changes, I'll get in touch with you again. All right. After hanging up, I stood by the roadside waiting for a car. A black Mercedes pulled up, the window rolled down, and it was Lu Tingshan. Get in. I glanced at him, opened the rear door and sat down. Did you go to find my dad? He looked at me through the rearview mirror, his gaze sullen. What did you tell him? You'll know soon enough. Shen Qingyan. He slammed on the brakes and turned to look at me. What do you actually want? What do I want? I looked into his eyes. Lu Tingshan, I want you to sign the divorce papers. It's as simple as that. Divorce is possible, he sneered. But your mother's surgery fees. Your father has already agreed. Continue paying. His smile vanished. What is it? You heard right, your father agreed and I took the agreement out of my bag. He's also going to show you an addendum. 800 million in emotional damages. 800 million. His voice shot up an octave. Are you crazy? I'm not crazy, that's the price of the wine at your wedding banquet. I pushed the car door open. Lu Tingshan, remember to read carefully when you sign. That line in French, I can translate it for you. If the husband publicly humiliates during the marriage, he shall pay 800 million renminbi in compensation for emotional damages. I got out of the car and closed the door. Through the window, I saw Lu Tingshan's face contort into an expression I'd never seen before: anger, fear, shame, and a deep sense of helplessness. He slammed the steering wheel once. The horn blared on the quiet Xiangshan road. I turned and walked away behind him. His car idled for a long time before roaring away. The high-end maternal and baby shop was on the 4th floor of SKP, everything imported. A single baby Onacy was priced at 3,800 yuan. I followed Shun Ruoqing into the store. She was sticking out a belly, more precisely wearing a silicone fake belly, walking slowly between the shelves, one hand on her waist, the other feeling a little sweater. "Does this look good?" She turned to the sales assistant, her voice as gentle as if soothing a baby. The sales assistant smiled and said, "Madam has real taste. This is an Italian imported, purely handcrafted weave." I leaned against the shelf, arms folded. "How long are you going to keep pretending?" Shun Ruoqing's body stiffened. She slowly turned around, and when she saw it was me, the color drained from her face. Qingyin Jie, don't call me Jie, I'm a year younger than you." She glanced at the sales assistant, who took the hint and walked away. The store was left with just the two of us and walls full of baby supplies. "What are you doing here?" She lowered her voice, her hand instinctively covering her belly. "I'm here to buy something and to see how you perform." "While I'm at it, I'm not performing." Shun Ruoqing. I walked up to her and pressed a hand against her belly, the feel of silicone, stiff and hard, completely unlike the softness of a real pregnancy. She let out an ah and stepped back, bumping into a row of baby bottles on the shelf. They clattered and fell all over the floor. "Fake belly," I said, looking at her. "You aren't pregnant at all." She stood among the shattered glass and bottles. Her expression shifted from terror to despair, then from despair to a grim, give-up ferocity. "Yes, I'm not pregnant, happy now. Whether I'm satisfied or not doesn't matter. What matters is, what would Lu Tingshan do if he found out?" She shivered. "Qingyin, no, Shen Qingyin, you can't tell him. If you tell him, he'll kill me. He's not that violent, but with his personality." I picked up a milk bottle that hadn't been broken and looked at it. "He would ruin your reputation, your family's winery, your house in Paris, your parents' honor, all of it would be over." Shun Ruoqing's tears fell, streaking through her makeup. "Please don't tell him." I put down the baby bottle and looked at her. "I can help you keep the secret." She froze. "But you have to do something for me." "What is it?" 3 days from now, at Huating Real Estate's annual shareholders meeting, you will attend. "Me, I'm attending their shareholders meeting." "Yes, attend as Lu Tingshan's ex-girlfriend and the mother of his child." I looked at her. "I want you to say one sentence at the conference, in front of all the directors." "What sentence?" "You just say, Lu Tingshan, you are not human." She widened her eyes. Just that one sentence. Just that one sentence, say it. "And you can leave, I'll handle the rest." "But if I say that, Lu Tingshan he'll hate you, but he won't touch you, because after that he'll have bigger problems to deal with." I took a check out of my bag. "This is 2 million, consider it your appearance fee." She looked at the check, then at me, her hand trembling. "Who exactly are you?" "I'm just a woman he humiliated." I shoved the check into her hand. "See you in 3 days." I turned and walked out of the mother and baby store. As I passed the sales assistant, she was crouched on the floor picking up baby bottles. "Those that were broken, put them on my tab," I said. "Oh, all right, In the elevator, I took out my phone and sent Mohammed a message. "How's the share acquisition progressing?" The reply came instantly, 99% completed. Another 10% under negotiation. We can reach 25% before the shareholders meeting. I look at the screen, the corners of my mouth lifting. With 25% of the shares plus the proxies from other minor shareholders in my hand, I can command over 30% of the voting power at Huateng's board meeting. Lu Tingshan has only 28%. In 3 days, he'll realize his company is no longer his. The Huateng Real Estate annual shareholders meeting was held in the Grand Banquet Hall of the International Trade Hotel. At 9 in the morning, directors and shareholders in suits and ties filed in one after another. I sat in the last row wearing a black Givenchy suit dress, my hair pinned up, a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on. No one recognized me. They only knew me as Lu Tingshan's wife. No one knew I was the mysterious shareholder who had acquired 99% of Huateng's shares. Lu Tingshan sat on the dais, his father Lu Zhenghua beside him. He looked well, his suit sharp, a smile on his face, laughing and chatting with the directors beside him. He still didn't know the storm was coming. The conference began, and Lu Tingshan gave the annual report as CEO. Slide after slide of the PPT flipped by. The numbers were impressive, the performance outstanding. And the shareholders nodded repeatedly. I looked down at my phone. Mohammed sent a message. Mr. Al-Farsi has arrived and is waiting in the first-floor cafe. I replied, have him come up in 10 minutes. Lu Tingshan finished his report and applause erupted. He stood up and bowed, his gaze sweeping across the venue. He saw me and frowned slightly. The floor is now open for shareholders' questions. The host said. I stood up. Mr. Lu, I have a question. All eyes turned to me. Someone recognized me and a murmur spread through the crowd. Lu Tingshan's expression changed. What are you doing here? I'm a shareholder of Huateng. I took a share certificate from my bag and held it up for everyone to see. I hold 99% of Huateng Real Estate. I'm the company's second largest shareholder. The meeting erupted. Lu Zhanghua whipped his head around to look at me, his teacup nearly spilling. The other directors stared at one another. Someone started flipping through the shareholder register. Impossible. Lu Tingshan stood up. Huateng's shares have never been publicly transferred. I finished for him. Right, so my shares weren't bought on the secondary market. They were transferred to me by agreement from the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. They had held Huateng's shares for 3 years. You just didn't know. Lu Tingshan's face went pale. 3 years ago the ADIA entered the A-share market through the QFII channel, and Huateng was one of their holdings. 3 months ago they transferred their entire holding to me. The paperwork is in order and the CSRC filing has been completed. I put the share certificate on the table. According to the company bylaws, shareholders holding more than 15% of the shares have the right to request an extraordinary board meeting. I hereby formally propose reconstituting the board. The meeting erupted into chaos. Some shareholders applauded, some stood up to demand explanations, and some directors were on the phone to verify. Lu Tingshan rushed down from the podium, came up to me and lowered his voice. Shen Qingyan. Are you crazy? This is your husband's company. Ex-husband. I corrected him. We already signed the divorce agreement. It's just that the paperwork hasn't been completed. You, Lu Tingshan. I looked at him. You think I'm just a translator who speaks French? You're wrong. I was at the United Nations for 8 years. I served not the Secretary General but all 196 member states of the world. My connections, my resources, are 100 times greater than your Huateng Real Estate. He stood where he was, his chest heaving violently. What exactly do you want? What do I want? I laughed. I want you to kneel and beg me. I turned and walked out of the hall. My high heels clicked on the marble floor, each step resonant. Behind me, Lu Tingshan rushed after me and grabbed my arm in the corridor. Shen Qingyan, stop right there. I shake off his hand. Don't touch me. You think having 99% of the shares makes you hot stuff? I've got 28% in my hand. My dad has 15%, that's 43% together. What are you using to fight me? Are you sure your dad will still back you? His expression froze. Lu Tingshan, that 15% in your father's hands, I've already negotiated it. He'll vote to support me at the next board meeting. Impossible. Go ask him. I took out my phone and handed it to him. He's waiting for your call right now. Lu Tingshan took the phone and dialed Lu Zhanghua's number. The call connected. After listening for 3 seconds, his face went from pale to livid, then from livid to ashen. The phone slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. He leaned against the wall and slowly slid down. I picked up the phone and wiped the screen. Lu Tingshan, I told you don't show off your French in front of the UN interpreters. I turned and walked into the elevator. The moment the doors closed, I saw him kneeling in the hallway, hands on the floor, his shoulders trembling. The elevator reached the first floor and the doors opened. Mohammed Al-Farsi stood in the doorway wearing a white robe, smiling and speaking in French. Qingyan, c'est marche. Qingyan, did it work? It worked, I replied in French. Merci Mohammed, Doreen. He made a gesturing invitation. Alias on VA for Turka. Not now. I checked my watch. I have one more tough battle to fight. Which one? One Réunion de famille, a family meeting. In the law firm's conference room, the lights were glaring. At one side of the rectangular table sat me and my lawyer, Lawyer Zhao, a partner at Fengda Law Firm. On the other side sat Lu Tingshan and his legal team, 3 men, all elite in suits. Lu Tingshan slammed the divorce agreement onto the table. Shen Qingyan, what does that French clause of yours mean? What do you mean? I looked at Lawyer Zhao. Lawyer Zhao pushed up his glasses, flipped open to the last page of the agreement. Supplementary Clause 7. If the husband publicly humiliates the wife during the marriage, he shall pay 800 million renminbi in emotional damages. This clause was provided bilingually in Chinese and French by Party A, Shen Qingyan. At the time the agreement was signed, Party B, Lu Tingshan, raised no objection when signing and is therefore deemed to have agreed. I didn't understand that line of French. Lu Tingshan slammed the table. I only noticed it after I signed. Mr. Lu, lawyer Zhao said calmly. The third page of the agreement clearly states this agreement is governed by the Chinese text. The French version is for reference only. You read and confirmed the entire Chinese version. Before signing, in the Chinese version, Supplementary Clause 7 was fully translated and listed. Lu Tingshan flipped to the third page, read for 3 seconds, and his face flushed bright red. The Chinese version says, if the man publicly humiliates, but what is the definition of publicly humiliate? The definition is in Appendix 2, lawyer Zhao flipped to the end. Appendix 2, public humiliation refers to acts in public places or public occasions that demean Party A's personality, trample on their dignity or cause emotional harm through language, writing, behavior, etc. specifically, but not limited to, making insulting remarks in French at the wedding banquet, declaring in public that the marriage is a meaningless choice, and the like. This is unreasonable. Lu Tingshan's lawyer slammed the table and stood up. 800 million in emotional damages is clearly excessive and violates public order and morals. Public order and good morals. I spoke up. Lu Tingshan confessed to his ex. At his own wedding, how is that public order and good morals? Ms. Shin. The other side's lawyer looked at me. But the 800 million, I stood up, is the price for what Lu Tingshan said at the wedding. He said, I don't care who I marry, if it doesn't matter, then pay money to buy that doesn't matter. Lu Tingshan rose, both hands on the table, staring at me. Shen Qingyan, you think you can take 800 million? I'm telling you, Huateng doesn't have that kind of cash flow right now, do you want to force the company to death? That's your problem. I closed the agreement. Lu Tingshan, you have two choices. First, pay 800 million, the agreement takes effect, and we walk away. Even second, don't pay, and I initiate legal proceedings and hand the wedding reception video and your bribery recording to the court and the media. Your choice. Lu Tingshan's face twisted. He turned to look at his lawyer. The lawyer lowered his head and flipped through documents, not daring to meet his eyes. He looked back at me, his eyes full of anger, unwillingness, and the despair of a beast trapped in a cage. I'll give you 3 minutes to think. I checked my watch. The conference room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioner running. A minute later, Lu Tingshan spoke. I agree. His voice was hoarse, as if squeezed out of his throat. Mr. Lu, his lawyer exclaimed. I said I agree, he shouted, then slumped into the chair, covering his face with both hands. Lawyer Zhao slid the revised agreement over. Lu Tingshan picked up the pen, his hand trembling, and it took him 3 tries to sign his name properly. He threw his pen onto the table, stood up and looked at me. Shen Qingyan, you'll regret this. I won't. I picked up the agreement and checked the signature once more. Lu Tingshan, you're the one who will regret it. Regret saying that at the wedding banquet. Regret underestimating that French-speaking translator. I turned and walked out of the conference room. In the corridor, lawyer Zhao caught up with me. Ms. Shen, this money, as previously agreed, donate the full amount to the China Spinal Muscular Atrophy Foundation. All 800 million, all of it. I looked at him. Lawyer Zhao, please oversee the execution. Every single cent must be received. All right. I walked out of the law firm building, stood on the steps and took a deep breath. My phone rang. It was a message from Chen Rui, sister-in-law. President Lu just returned to the office and smashed everything. His secretary said he even overturned his desk. I didn't reply. The second message came immediately after. He also made a call, saying he's going to check all your bank accounts and overseas assets. I laughed. Let him check. My money is all in the UN's International Civil Servants Pension account. The Chinese government can't touch it. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission can't touch it. Interpol can't touch it. The third message. Sister-in-law, be careful. He said he'll come after you. I put my phone away and hailed a taxi. Where to? The driver asked. The First People's Hospital of the city. The car had been on the road for 10 minutes when the phone rang again. This time it was Lu Zhenghua calling. Qingyan, Tingshan, Dad, I know he trashed the office. He just called me and said he wants to go down with you. He wouldn't dare. How do you know? Because he's afraid of dying. I looked at the street outside the window. Lu Tingshan's greatest virtue is that he's afraid of death, so he won't do anything truly dangerous. He'll only smash things, insult people, threaten, then obediently give up. Lu Zhenghua was silent for a long time. Qingyan, I shouldn't have let Tingshan marry you back then. Why? Because you're too strong, he's not worthy of you. I was stunned for a moment, then I smiled. Dad, thank you. Don't thank me. I was just telling the truth. After hanging up, the taxi stopped at the entrance to the hospital. I paid, got out, and walked into the inpatient building. The elevator reached the 6th floor and the doors opened. At the end of the corridor, standing outside my mother's ward, was someone, Shen Ruoqing. She saw me, rushed over, and grabbed my arm. Qingyan, Lu Tingshan found out. He knows I'm not pregnant. He called and yelled at me for half an hour. He said he was going to kill me. I shake off her hand. How did he find out? I don't know, maybe Chen Rui told him. Chen Rui, I took out my phone and sent Chen Rui a message. Did you tell Lu Tingshan that Shen Ruoqing faked her pregnancy? The reply came instantly. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry, he threatened to sue me for embezzlement of duties. I had no choice. I turned off my phone and looked at Shen Ruoqing. Now you know, anyone who does things for Lu Tingshan ends up being betrayed by him. What then? What should I do? Go, leave this city, return to Paris. Don't come back. But, Shen Ruoqing, I looked at her. After entangling with Lu Tingshan for so many years, what have you gained? A relationship that must be kept in the dark, a false pregnancy lie, or a humiliation exposed in public? She fell silent, tears splashing down. Let's go. I turned and pushed open the hospital room door. Don't come back. Behind me, Shen Ruoqing stood for a long time, then turned and walked toward the elevator. Her high heels clicked on the hallway floor. The sound growing more distant. Huateng Real Estate Headquarters CEO Office, 3:00 p.m. Lu Tingshan sat at his desk, and on the computer screen before him was an email, an official notice from the Bank of China. Due to risk control reasons, all credit cooperation with Huateng Real Estate is terminated, effective immediately. His fingers trembled on the mouse. A second email popped up from the China Construction Bank. In light of recent negative public opinion about your company, our bank has decided to recall all loans ahead of schedule. The third letter, the fourth letter, the fifth letter. Industrial and Commercial Bank, Agricultural Bank, China Merchants Bank, every partner bank sent the same notice on the same day at the same time. Impossible, he murmured, picked up his phone and called the chief financial officer. Mr. Li, what's going on with the bank credit? There was a 3-second silence on the other end of the line. Mr. Lu, it's because of the situation in Europe. 3 European consortia simultaneously filed complaints with the China Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission, alleging that we violated certain clauses in the cross-border financing agreements. The CBIRC launched an investigation. And all the banks panicked and collectively pulled their loans. European consortia. Which European consortia? It was MS Shen who contacted them through her UN network. Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, BNP Paribas. They joined forces and shut off all our financing channels. Lu Tingshan threw his phone onto the table. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked down at Chang'an Avenue. Cars flowed like a river. People came and went. No one paid any attention to what the people in this building were going through. The phone rang again. This time it was his father's secretary. Mr. Lu, the old gentleman has had a heart attack. He's being rushed to Peking Union Medical College Hospital for emergency treatment. Lu Tingshan's face went pale. What is it? The doctor said it's not looking good. Please come as soon as you can. He grabbed his car keys and dashed out of the office. The elevator hadn't arrived after 30 seconds, so he took the emergency stairs down 16 floors. By the time he reached the bottom, his legs went weak and he fell, his knee hitting the step, the pain making him grit his teeth. He got up and kept running. At Xiehe Hospital Emergency Center, the corridors were full of people. Lu Zhenghua was pushed into the operating room. The door closed and the red light came on. Lu Tingshan slumped in a plastic chair in the corridor, his shirt soaked with sweat, the blood on his knee seeping through his pants. He took out his phone, opened the contacts and found my name. His finger hovered above the screen, pausing for a long time. Then he pressed the dial button. The phone rang 4 times and was picked up. Hello. My voice was very calm, as if I were answering an ordinary work call. Shen Qingyan. His voice was so hoarse it didn't sound like him. My dad has gone into the operating room. I know. Do you know? He suddenly stood up. You the one who's angry? I'm not the angry one. He was furious because he found out you ruined the company. You, Lu Tingxian, I cut him off. Before your dad went into surgery, he had the secretary tell you something. What did he say? He said, hand the company over to Qingyin and get out of the Lu family. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard a low, stifled sob. Lu Tingxian was crying. This 32-year-old heir to a 100 billion empire, this elite gentleman who professed his love in French at the wedding banquet, this man who froze all my bank cards and threatened me with my mother's surgery funds, cried in the hospital corridor. Shen Qingyin, he said chokingly, what do you really want? Tell me, what do you really want? I already told you I want you to kneel and beg me. I beg you, I'm begging you. Alright, let Huoteng go, let my father go, I'll agree to anything. Lu Tingxian, my voice was cold. Is your way of begging by sitting in a chair and making a phone call? He froze for a moment. You want me to? I want you to beg me face to face in front of my mother. Your mother? Yes. In my mother's hospital room, you tell her to her face what you said at the wedding. What you did, how you've treated her daughter, Shen Qingyin. These are the terms. If you can't meet them, wait for Huoteng to go bankrupt and liquidate next Wednesday. I hung up the phone in the corridor of Xiehe Hospital. Lu Tingxian held his phone, standing at the door of the operating room, the red light still on. He lowered his head, his forehead resting against the cold stainless steel doorframe. The blood on his knee had already clotted, sticking to his pants and tugging at his skin with a sharp sting. He closed his eyes, and scenes from the wedding banquet flashed through his mind when he raised his glass and spoke that line in French. Everyone laughed. He thought he was the protagonist, thought he was the one in control of everything. He hadn't expected that the woman quietly sipping soup in the corner was the real hunter, and he was only a self-righteous prey. City First People's Hospital, inpatient ward corridor, 6th floor, 8:00 a.m. I pushed the wheelchair, taking my mother from the ward to the rest area at the end of the corridor. Sunlight streamed through the window, lighting her pale face. She seemed much better than last week. Qingyin, do you think someone is coming today? Yes, Tingxian is coming. Tingxian. My mother paused. What is he coming for? Come apologize. My mother glanced at me and said nothing. The elevator doors opened. Lu Tingxian stepped out, wearing a wrinkled shirt with the collar open and no tie. His eyes were swollen and red. Blue stubble showed on his chin, and there was a bandage on his knee. He saw me, paused for a moment, then slowly walked over. You're here, I said. My mom is over there. He looked at my mom, hesitated for a moment and walked over. Mom. Tingxian, how did you end up like this? My mom frowned. What happened to your leg? It's nothing. I took a fall. He stood in front of my mother for a long time, his lips moving, but he didn't say a word. Tingxian. My mother looked at him. What exactly do you want to tell me? Lu Tingxian lowered his head. Mom, I'm sorry. Sorry for what? I'm sorry. His voice was trembling. I'm sorry that at the wedding banquet I said something I shouldn't have. What did you say? He was silent for a long time. His voice grew quieter. I said in French, if I didn't marry you, it wouldn't matter who I married. My mother's expression changed. She turned to look at me. Her eyes held pity, anger, and a regret, like how did I marry my daughter to someone like this? My mother's voice trembled. You said that at Qingyin's wedding. Mom, I'm sorry. Don't call me mom. My mother slapped the wheelchair armrest hard. I don't have a son-in-law like you. Mom, I held her hand. Don't get worked up, your blood pressure will rise. How can I not be worked up? My mother's eyes were red. I lay in the hospital for 3 months. I thought my daughter had married into a good family, but what happened was, at the wedding, she couldn't continue and tears fell. Lu Tingxian stood there at a loss. Mom, no auntie, I'm sorry, I really know I was wrong. What good is knowing you're wrong? My mother wiped her tears. Do you know how Qingyin has spent the past 3 months? She comes to the hospital every day to take care of me, and she has to deal with all the mess in your family. Do you know she's lost 20 jin? Lu Tingxian looked at me, his gaze complicated. I didn't speak. Auntie. He suddenly fell to his knees with a thud. I beg you to forgive me. The nurses and patients in the corridor all looked over. Some took out their phones to take pictures, others whispered. My mother was stunned. What are you doing? Get up. I'm not getting up. Lu Tingxian knelt on the ground, head bowed. Auntie, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I only beg you don't let yourself get sick because of me. I looked at Lu Tingxian kneeling on the ground. I felt neither pleasure nor pity, only a calm sense of it's finally over. I took out my phone, opened the wedding banquet video and handed it to him. Look, he looked up at the screen. In the video, he was holding a glass, beaming as he spoke that line in French. 200 people in the room were laughing. The camera turned to me, waiting to see me humiliate myself. Lu Tingshan's face shifted from red to white, then from white to ashen. Did you think about this day when you humiliated me in public? He shook his head. Did you think about this day when you froze my bank card? He kept shaking his head. When you used my mother's surgery fees to threaten me? Did you ever think about this day? He lowered his head even further. Shen Qingyan, I was wrong. You were wrong. I crouched down, meeting his eyes. Lu Tingshan, you weren't wrong. You lost to a woman you looked down on. I stood up and put my phone away. Get up, stop kneeling. Your knees aren't for kneeling, except in court. His body jolted violently. What court? I didn't answer. At the end of the corridor, the elevator doors opened. 2 people in uniforms walked out, police officers from the Economic Investigation Unit of the Beijing Municipal Public Security Bureau. Lu Tingshan, we are from the Economic Investigation Unit. You are suspected of 3 charges: bribery, tax evasion, and forging contracts. Please come with us to assist with the investigation. Lu Tingshan slumped to the floor, all color drained from his face. Shen Qingyan, you called the police. It wasn't me. I looked at him. It was your partner who called after the deputy director at the Land Bureau was arrested. He flipped on you to get a lighter sentence. No, that's impossible. Lu Tingshan, I crouched down and looked at him one last time. Did you think your greatest enemy was me? It's not. Your greatest enemy is yourself. It's your arrogance, your selfishness, your contempt for everyone. The police pulled him up from the ground and put handcuffs on him. When they took him away, he glanced back at me. In that look there was hatred, unwillingness, and a deep confusion. He never understood why a translator who can speak French could pull him down from the throne of 100 billion empire. The elevator doors closed. The corridor fell quiet again. My mother sat in a wheelchair looking at me, tears still streaming down her face. Qingyan, Mom, I said, pushing her wheelchair toward the ward, let's go back and have breakfast. Today's porridge is the century egg and lean pork porridge you like. Qingyan, are you really okay? I'm fine. I smiled. Mom, I've never been better than I am now. The phone buzzed. I looked down. It was a message from Geneva. Qingyan, la nomination est prête, rentrez à la maison. Qingyan, the nomination is ready, come home. I looked at the screen, the corners of my mouth lifting. Outside the window, sunlight fell on the hospital garden, and a few pigeons strolled across the lawn. I pushed the wheelchair and slowly walked back to the ward. Behind me on the corridor floor, there were still marks where Lu Tingshan had knelt. The press conference was held in the grand ballroom of the International Trade Hotel, the very place where I held my wedding banquet 3 months ago. The same crystal chandelier, the same red carpet, the same Bordeaux wine. The difference was that today the person standing on the stage was me. In the audience sat reporters from more than 300 media outlets, their long lenses and shotguns aimed at the dais. Financial reporters, social news reporters, entertainment reporters, all of them were here, because today's press conference touched on a business scandal, a feud among the wealthy, and a hot social issue. I stood on the stage wearing a white shirt and black dress pants, my hair in a ponytail, no makeup. The name tag on my chest read, former shareholder of Huateng Real Estate. Ladies and members of the media, thank you all for coming today, I said into the microphone. There is only one purpose for holding this press conference, to announce 3 illegal and criminal acts committed by Huateng Real Estate's former CEO Lu Tingshan during his tenure. The shutter clicks from the audience exploded into a cacophony. The first, a document appeared on the screen behind me, is bribery. During the approval process for commercial land in Tongju, Lu Tingshan bribed the former deputy director of the Bureau of Land and Resources a total of 5 renminbi million. The evidence includes 3 audio recordings and bank transfer records. The first recording played on the screen, Lu Tingshan's conversation with the deputy director at the Jockey Club. In the recording, Lu Tingshan's voice was clearly audible. You take this money first. Once the approval comes through, there will be more later. The audience went into an uproar. Second item, I continued, tax evasion. Over the past 3 years, Huateng Real Estate has evaded corporate income tax totaling 120 million yuan by fabricating costs and shifting profits. The evidence includes the company's internal financial reports and tax inspection records. Dense financial data appeared on the screen, each entry marked with a date and an amount. Third item, I turned the page, forging contracts. Lu Tingshan ordered subordinates to forge 27 commercial contracts to defraud bank loans and investors' trust. The evidence includes the original contracts and testimony from the handlers. The shutter clicks from the audience grew more frequent, the flashbulbs blurring my vision. I set the microphone down and glanced at Shun Ruoqing sitting in the audience. She was wearing a black dress, her face pale, but her gaze was resolute. She stood up, walked onto the stage and stood beside me. This is Ms. Shun Ruoqing. I introduced her. She will serve as a witness to testify about Lu Tingshan's improper conduct during the marriage. Shun Ruoqing took the microphone. Her hand trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. My name is Shun Ruoqing. Lu Tingshan and I were lovers while studying abroad. We maintained an improper relationship up until his marriage. There was an uproar in the audience. On his wedding day, she went on, he said to me in French at the reception, if I didn't marry you it wouldn't matter who I married. He thought his wife couldn't understand French, but in fact his wife is a French translator at the United Nations. I played the video from the reception on the big screen. Lu Tingshan raised his glass, beaming as he spoke that line in French. The camera then panned to me sitting in the corner. The me on the screen put down my chopsticks, picked up my glass and stood up. Someone in the audience gasped and others applauded. I testify. Shun Ruoqing's voice choked. Lu Tingshan repeatedly deceived and humiliated his wife during their marriage. He even froze her bank card and used her mother's medical expenses to threaten her. She put down the microphone, looked at me and softly said, "I'm sorry." I nodded. "Dear members of the press," I said into the microphone, "I am holding this press conference not to get revenge on Lu Tingshan. I am doing it so more people will know when a woman is humiliated, controlled, and threatened, she doesn't have to remain silent. She can fight back." Thunderous applause from the audience. I raised my right hand to signal everyone to be quiet. Finally, I want to say something to all women who have been hurt in marriage. I looked into the camera and spoke each word deliberately. Never let anyone tell you you don't deserve it. You deserve all the respect in this world. Applause rose again, more fervent than before. I stepped off the stage and as I passed the cluster of reporters someone shouted, "Ms. Shun Lu Tingshan was taken away by the police just now." I stopped in my tracks. Where is he? At Huaten headquarters. He had just finished a board meeting and was taken away as soon as he came out. I nodded and kept walking out. When I reached the lobby entrance, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Ms. Shen Qingyan. This is the Municipal Public Security Bureau's Economic Investigation Unit. Lu Tingshan has already been taken into our custody. He requested to see you. See me? Yes, he said he has something important to tell you. I thought for a moment. All right, I'll go. The Municipal Bureau's Economic Crime Investigation Unit interrogation room was harshly lit. Lu Tingshan sat in an iron chair, handcuffed, with an untouched glass of water placed before him. He looked up when he saw me enter. In just a few hours he seemed to have aged 10 years. His hair was a mess, his eyes bloodshot and the corners of his mouth peeling. "You came." His voice was hoarse. Are you satisfied?" "It's not a question of satisfaction, it's a question of you having to bear the consequences of doing something wrong." "Doing something wrong?" He suddenly laughed, the smile very bitter. "Shen Qingyan, do you know the worst thing I ever did in my life wasn't saying that sentence at the wedding?" "What is that?" "It's marrying you." I looked at him and said nothing. "I thought you were an easy woman to handle, from a small town, a sick mother, no money or power, knows a couple phrases of French. I thought you'd obediently do as you're told." What happened instead? He looked down at the handcuffs on his hands. "I ended up dragging myself into this. Lu Tingshan." I crouched down to meet his eyes. "You're not sitting here because you married me. You're here because of bribery, tax evasion, and falsifying contracts. Even without me, those things would have been discovered sooner or later." He fell silent. "You're just used to putting the blame on others." I stood up. "Blame your father, blame Chen Rui, blame Shun Ruoqing, blame me, but you never thought you're the real root of the problem." I turned and walked toward the door. "Shen Qingyan," he called from behind. "Did you really never love me?" I stopped without looking back. "Lu Tingshan, you never gave me a chance to love." I push the door open and walk out. Behind me, the door of the interrogation room shuts with a dull thud. In the corridor, a police officer walks over. "Ms. Shen, thank you for your cooperation about that evidence. Leave everything to the court, let it decide as it will, all right?" I walked out of the police station and stood on the steps. It was already dark, the streetlights were on and cars passed by. My phone rang. It was a message from Geneva. Qingyin, le vol est réservé, Genève t'y attend. Qingyin, the flight is booked. Geneva is waiting for you. I replied with one word, merci, thank you. Then I made a phone call to my mom. Mom, I'm going to Switzerland tomorrow. Switzerland, how long will you be gone? I don't know, maybe a long time. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then make sure you take good care of yourself. Mom, you too. After hanging up, I stood under the streetlight watching the unending stream of headlights on Chang'an Avenue 3 months ago. I sat in the corner of our wedding banquet, listening to my newlywed husband confess his love to his first love in French. 200 people were laughing, waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Today, that man is sitting in an interrogation room, handcuffed, waiting for the law to judge him, and I am going back to Geneva, back to the place where I truly belong, Geneva, the Palace of Nations, United Nations headquarters, the Assembly Hall. 3 in the afternoon, a special meeting of the Security Council was underway. The topic was the humanitarian crisis in the Sahel region of Africa. Representatives of the 5 permanent members spoke in turn, alternating between French, English, Chinese, Russian and Arabic. I was sitting in the simultaneous interpretation booth with a microphone and display screen in front of me, headphones on my head. Through the glass window, the assembly hall was filled with delegates from various countries. Le représentant de la France a la parole. The representative of France has the floor. The French ambassador to the United Nations rose, opened his papers and began to speak. His French carried a right bank Paris accent, his pace was quick and his word choice was precise. My fingers flew across the keyboard while I simultaneously interpreted into the microphone, French into Chinese, every sentence, every term. Every subtle diplomatic turn of phrase was accurately converted into Chinese by me. La France reaffirms son engagement en faveur de la stabilité de la région du Sahel. France reaffirms its commitment to the stability of the Sahel region. My voice reached the ears of every Chinese delegate in the assembly through their headsets. My speed matched his, my emotion matched his, and I even perfectly replicated the rhythm of the ambassador's pauses. The French ambassador finished speaking and sat down. Next up was the Russian delegate. I didn't translate the Russian directly but relayed it through English. However, I was in charge of monitoring the French channel to ensure the translations in all languages were consistent. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When it ended, I took off my headset and rubbed my temples. The booth was very quiet, with only the hum of the air conditioner. The door opened and Jean-Luc poked his head in. Qingyin, comme toujours, impeccable. Qingyin, as always, impeccable. Merci. Jean-Luc, I smiled. C'est fait du bien d'être de retour. Thank you, it feels good to be back. On t'y manqué. Did you miss us? A little, he smiled. La prochaine session c'est toi qui chef d'équipe prête. Next session you're the team leader, ready, always ready. I walked out of the simultaneous interpretation booth and through the corridor of the Palais des Nations, United Nations, and member state flags hung on both sides of the corridor. Sunlight streamed through the glass dome, casting bands of light and shadow on the floor. As I passed the doorway of the Great Hall, I stopped and took a look. Inside the Great Hall, delegates from various countries were gathering their documents and chatting in small groups. The large screen on the wall still displayed today's agenda: Sahel, global warming, the refugee crisis. These are the things that truly matter in this world, not some feud among the rich, not a French confession at a wedding banquet, not an 800 million divorce settlement. I turned and kept walking. As I passed the security checkpoint, a guard nodded to me. Bonsoir, Mademoiselle Chen. Good evening, Miss Chen. Bonsoir. Stepping out of the Palais des Nations main gate, I was met by Lake Geneva. The lake shimmered gold in the setting sun. In the distance a fountain shot skyward, its mist refracting rainbows in the sunlight. I stood on the steps and took a deep breath. The air carried the scent of lake water, of fresh grass and of freedom. A black sedan pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down to reveal a sharply featured face, golden hair, blue eyes, a jawline as if measured with a ruler. He was wearing a deep blue suit, a badge pinned to his chest, the Monaco royal emblem. He is Alexandre de Monaco, third in line to the Monegasque throne and a special advisor to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. I met him at last year's COP28 when I was head of the French team and he was Monaco's delegate. He looked at me and said in French, Mademoiselle Shen, j'attends ce dîner depuis un. Miss Shen, I have been waiting for this dinner for a year. I was taken aback for a moment, then I smiled. Vous n'avez pas changé. You haven't changed, you too as elegant as ever, you too as elegant as ever. He pushed open the car door, got out, and opened the passenger door for me. Alice on YVA. So shall we go? I looked into his eyes, then glanced at the main entrance of the Palais des Nations behind him, then I turned back and smiled at him. Why not? I got into the car, the sedan drove along the road by Lake Geneva, the setting sun bathing the entire city in gold, the fountain on the lake fanned out in the wind, its mist speckling the car window like tiny diamonds. Alexandre was driving, saying nothing. He turned on the car stereo, and Edith Piaf's La Vie en Rose played. I looked out the window as we passed the United Nations European headquarters. The row of flags fluttered in the breeze. I recognized the one in the very center. The five-star red flag 3 months ago. I was humiliated at my wedding banquet 2 months ago. I received the divorce papers 1 month ago. Lu Tingchen was sentenced. Today, I am in Geneva, sitting in the Prince of Monaco's car listening to Edith Piaf, on my way to a dinner I've waited a year for. My phone buzzed. I looked down. It was a news alert. Former CEO of Huateng Real Estate Lu Tingchen has been sentenced to 6 years in prison for the crimes of bribery, tax evasion, and falsifying contracts, and has been ordered to forfeit personal assets of 500 renminbi million. I turned off the screen and put the phone back in my bag. Quelques chose d'important. Is there something important? Alexandre asked. Nothing important. I leaned my head against the back of the seat, looking out at Lake Geneva. On the surface of the lake, the last ray of sunlight was fading, replaced by the city lights. One by one they came on, like stars falling from the sky to the earth. The car kept moving forward, driving into the golden afterglow. Behind her, the dome of the Hall of Nations gleamed in the setting sun, and the row of national flags fluttered gently in the wind. Beneath one of those flags, a woman once stood there wearing a black suit dress, the nameplate on her chest reading Shen Qingyin Chief Interpreter. She spent 3 months teaching a man what respect meant. Then she returned to the stage that belonged to her. That stage is not someone's wife, not someone's daughter-in-law, not someone's tool for marriage alliances. That stage is the United Nations. That name is Shen Qingyin, Chief French Interpreter at the United Nations. This world is very small, so small it cannot contain one person's arrogance. This world is also very big, big enough to hold all of a woman's ambition. The end.